No matter which scene or fandom you may love, there is always merchandise for it. For some, it's the best way to support the activities of the people they love and admire. For others, it's a hobby to find the most significant pieces of their fandom, collect and document them. And when it comes to the visual kei realm, it's a whole world in its own right. Not only is it a scene born decades ago where many bands of all kinds have already left their footprints, but it's also one of the scenes where world building and the pursuit of beauty are most appreciated. That has given free rein to many bands to create all kinds of objects. Not only music, but a wide range of unique things, from jewelry to toys. Some have amazing stories behind them. Others are a testament to the passage of time and how fandoms used to be before social media. And a few of them are too strange to even be defined. So, tell me something. Have you ever wondered what lies hidden in the deepest corners of Mercari? And what it meant for bands to release unique pieces of merch? Let's do this as if it were an iceberg, starting for the most common and well-known products, and then descending little by little down the rabbit hole to the most curious and least known. Let's begin with the first tier, the things that you may get after a concert or are just widely available in stores. Some of these are really well known, while others may still surprise you. Because even though they are common, visual kei bands often do things differently from other kinds of bands. But before we deep dive into that, let's start by setting aside the first piece of merchandise, the most common and obvious one. Visual kei bands are music bands, so they make and sell music. It makes sense, right? So CDs, tapes and DVDs are pretty much a given. There is a huge market for both new and old records. Anything goes. From new albums by current bands to re-editions by bands that no longer play. And of course, old pieces of obscure media from bands that never got popular. That's their main product, of course. And if you get lucky, you can get really cool pieces from the bands you love. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. And I'm pretty sure you didn't come here tonight to hear about music albums. So, tell me something. Have you ever thought what lies beyond that? Turns out there is an incredible world out there. What if I told you many bands, especially smaller and newer ones, don't make their ends meet with their music but with a very different product? While the goal of a band is to make music, more often than not, recording albums and producing MVs is very expensive. And in fact, some even lose money by playing live if they don't sell enough tickets, as live venues charge them a fee for playing there. However, bands found a solution. Since their styling is often striking, they decided to sell their own beautiful image, literally. And to do so, they began selling techies, cute little instant photographs taken with Fujifilm Instax cameras. This isn't something exclusive to the visual kei scene, as many idol and adjacent performers make them too, and they changed the game for everyone. For bands, they found a product that didn't cost much money to make and let them break even while selling access and closeness to the band, which often translates into more support. For fans, it changed their relationship with the musicians and the way they interact with the fandom. Not only can they buy a small physical memento of their magical nights, but they can also take a check-in with a band member and interact with them for a little while. For some, it's the best way to support the bands and musicians they love and want to see thrive, even buying multiple shots in one night. For others, they became collector's items like trading cards, usually filling them into albums and trying to get as many as possible from different musicians and special events. There is a big market for them, not only in Japan but also in the West, where people not only resell them, but also trade them with others to try to expand their collections. And while some criticize them, I think it's one of the coolest things you could collect from this fandom if you are emotionally invested in particular musicians or their aesthetics. In fact, some other nights I'll probably end up telling you their origin stories and many anecdotes of bands that have sold them. They are very cool. For now, let's just keep going further down the rabbit hole. But not every piece comes from the merchandise table at concerts. In fact, just by attending, some are able to get two very curious things for free: confetti ribbons and pigs. When I say confetti, you may think I'm talking about those little pieces of paper that are often thrown at celebrations. But visual kei bands usually pay great attention to detail, especially for significant events. That's why at many concerts where they throw confetti, it's something really different. Not only are they higher quality ribbons rather than pieces of torn paper, but they actually have the name of the event printed on them. Such is the case with Malice Miser's Deep Sanctuary 6 events. You can go over the video footage and see how they release it, and how the audience gets up to rap song, and for good reason. This is how it looks closer up. In its own right, it's a memento of that temporary beauty, something that commemorates that night and was only available to those who were there. From time to time, you can see a listing or two on Mercari selling them too, but that's not the only piece you can get by watching the concert. And this next one is not only different, but also something that has made some people lose their minds a little. Musicians often get their own personalized guitar and bass picks, and many drummers get their own custom sticks too. They are called signature models and often feature their logo and name. They are available in many shapes and colors, as pretty much every visual kei artist has released their own. You can purchase them brand new for very little, and even if you don't play any musical instrument, they are often very pretty and carry the legacy of a musician in something so small. It actually fits in your hand. Just beware, if you are going to use them to play your fidget, keep one or two unused, as the paint tends to fade very fast. And up to this point, it may seem like a very normal piece of merchandise, right? It's something small and cute that you can often buy for cents. Well, this is where things get complicated. During concerts, many musicians often throw their picks to the audience, a piece that they've just used to play a song themselves, and that has the ability to cloud the judgment of the rational mind and create some hilarious situations. From time to time, you can see listings like this one, a guitar pick used by Hisaki himself listed at more than 900 euros. I just don't see anyone in their right mind buying it for that price. A new one costs about 60 cents, just for reference. That's 1,500 new picks for that price. If you ask me, that's too wild. The same thing happens with picks that are no longer in production, like certain Malice Miser models being sold for 10-15 euros, while newer mana picks from Moi are just sold for 10 times less. I guess nostalgia and emotion are powerful forces, huh? As for the final entry of this first year, we can't forget apparel. There are many levels of what you can get from bands, as many bands have gone to incredible lengths just to give their fans something special. But let's just begin with the classics. Many bands offer t-shirts, hoodies, and tank tops with their logos, album covers, and even tour dates, along with tote bags. And there is even more, as these days it seems many bands are adapting pieces of merchandise from other subcultures and musical genres. For instance, you can find bumper sticker and patches from bands like Moi, Maybe I'm wrong here, but I believe things like patches are taken from many metal subgenres, where people tend to wear denim vests covering them. And if you think about it, it fits the musical style of many bands, as many take influence from black metal, thrash, death, and other styles. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg. In the second tier is where we dive deeper into the pieces of merchandise that make visual kei bands different when compared to other subcultures, starting with the term oshikatsu, and the fact that many bands and members often sell plushies and standees of themselves. As you can imagine, selling a plushie isn't something unique to visual kei bands, but when it comes to other culture, what people do with them is often something unique. Because for many, a plushie or a standee is something you put on a shelf as decoration. But when it comes to this fandom, many take them outside. You can see pictures on social media of how many people take their plushies and standees with them to concerts, and show pictures of them traveling and sightseeing iconic landmarks of many cities. This is something that comes from idol culture, where many go on little dates with a figure of their oshi, often showing an item while hanging out at a cafe. Of course, there are many degrees, as some only take them out for a concert or festival, while others, of their younger people, carry them everywhere and photograph them on every occasion. Even musicians make good use of them to promote their activities on social media and create content. These are probably some of the most abundant pieces of merchandise you can find. They are cheap, look good wherever you put them, and you can buy them new to support musicians. Pretty much every band has a fan club these days, a place where fans can get a little closer to the musicians and get many unique perks. Those vary between bands and eras. Many bands reward their members with access, while others go for physical products. For instance, the Malice Miser fan club, Mercari, released 21 magazines during its time and gifted a personal expander to archive them. They included news and information about the band during an era where it was difficult to stay informed about them, including the passing of Kami and the departure of Gact. They even went further and released a limited VHS tape for members only, containing a live performance. And while you may find it on YouTube today, back in the day, it was something very exclusive. This is something that Mana still carries on to this day with his current musical project, still sending newsletters along with CDs from time to time with new releases. Other bands have taken it further, by creating unique products that aren't related to music but something else. Japan has made many gifts for their fan club, not only music as they have distributed tapes too, but also keychains, charms, magnet laces, and even the late Hide from X released for sale a 200-unit limited edition ring, made of real silver for his fans. And this isn't the only ring he released during his life. To this day, you can see some listed from time to time. They usually sell very fast. As there are many fan clubs, let me summarize this tier a little. Most objects are about fashion, accessories and music, and many bands have even made card holders, since business cards are something that's not only deeply integrated into Japanese culture, but also many bangyas back in the day used business cards with their live names to exchange with others. That's something I have actually covered in great depth already. You can go watch it later. But not every fan club item is something you would expect. Sometimes visual kei bands go back to the mundane world and share with us the strangest things. For instance, Backtick has given band-themed masks to their fans. But those oddities and absurdities are a tier of their own. We'll have time for them later. Many are not only incredibly curious, but also represent a relic and a testament to the passage of time. since many modern fan clubs are focused on the digital realm. These days, many fan clubs focus on releasing exclusive videos online, blog posts, Q&As, and live chat to dance, since they are the most accessible to everyone, and most fandoms have shifted into a more personalized relationship with the musicians. However, no matter the band, their era, or whether they are active or not, there is still a place and a time for limited physical releases. Bands love celebrating events and milestones. From birthdays to anniversaries, there is always a reason to celebrate. Some even gather once in a while for a very special occasion after many years of disbandment, letting us see a future that could have been under different circumstances. These are often very emotional events, filled with many guest appearances, a special setlist, and of course, very special objects. Some of the latter can be strange in concept, like Lunacy's Daruma dolls, which are little dolls modeled after the founder of the Buddhist Zen tradition. During their dual arena tour, they sold these dolls as a very limited run. Others, like Malice Miser, during their anniversary reunions, have gone for all kinds of items, from a pocket mirror, a candle holder, and a couple of keychains to even wine glasses engraved with the dates, because nothing beats drinking some red wine while reminiscing about that night, or so Mana probably thought. But while some bands tend to go wild and sell all kinds of creative items that aren't related to music, many take the chance to sell exclusive music. Bands like Versailles have sold exclusive CD singles, available only during certain concerts, and if you weren't there, you had to wait much longer until those songs were included on a full album. And somehow, neither fan club nor event items are the most exclusive. There is a whole tier for that. Many visual kei bands pursue beauty as an absolute standard, trying to always present themselves as unique characters from a different universe. And in order to do so, they design clothing and accessories, and within that realm, some bands focus on jewelry and bijouterie to celebrate their unique world building. We have already seen Hide's rings, but he wasn't the only one focused on the fashion aspect of visual kei. The most well-known example here would be Moami Muay, Mana's own brand, something that he started as an umbrella to make his own fashion items and wardrobe has evolved over time. Not only do they make clothing pieces but also necklaces and rings. Some are made of metal while others are made of real silver. They even make these chains for glasses. I need to get myself some soon. I love that kind of gothic librarian vibe. And many bands have taken note of that, like Versailles, which made a line of jewelry a decade ago with all their pieces being made of silver, commemorating the style of all of their members. They even come with a certificate of authenticity that resembles the work the band has made. Another example would be Gagged, who has followed the same steps and has designed his own rings. And if you think about it, it makes so much sense. Many bands have created a whole world of temporary romantic beauty and aristocratic decadence. What could be a better fit than jewelry and fashion in this case? This is a very special tier, as the rabbit hole here begins to get way deeper. Musicians use instruments to make music, I mean that's a given, right? But while they all start with mass-produced models when they begin their journey, most of them will get better models as their career takes off, and some of them even dare to modify their instruments to have a unique look on stage. Then, if they are lucky, they will reach a point where a manufacturer will approach them to make a signature model, an instrument based on their style, sound, and persona, something designed from scratch just for them, And you? Those instruments are not only for the musician, you can buy one too, with the exact same look and specifications. This is something that you may know if you're a musician too, as brands like ESP, Edwards, Ibanez, and Fernandez have their signature lines covering many musicians. Guitars like Mana's iconic Gianni Field, Kisaki's Maiden, or Teru's Kekitetsu can be ordered from the factory by anyone, from the quote-unquote accessible version made by Edwards to the ESP's boutique models. Sometimes you can even get lucky and find one in stock at a music store, although for most models you'll probably end up waiting 6 months for the factory to make it for you. However, this is just the surface. What if I told you there is a hidden side I think many people don't know about yet? One that's full of surprises. If you want to get a new instrument, you are constrained to get something from a musician that's still active in the scene. In the realm of visual kei, thankfully, it means a decent range of instruments, as many bands are still creating. But over time, many musicians that are retired or no longer with us also had their own signature models. Even current musicians tend to change models over time when they want something different. Have you ever wondered what happens to those instruments? This is where the used market becomes relevant and things get wild. Some of them are highly sought after, like Hide's guitars. After all, he left such a deep mark on many people's hearts, and those models aren't in production anymore. From time to time, you can find one of his signature models being sold at a price higher than what they were sold for back when they were new. And unlike selling a pig for €1,000, this makes sense. The opposite happens too, even for many musicians that left a big mark. Their instruments don't have much demand these days. Fewer people are interested in music, and for many, they just represent something from an old band that may not be as popular today. This creates a very interesting situation, both in Japan and overseas. Recently, I found a couple of good examples that belong to Hisashi Imai, the lead guitarist of Backtick. His early signature models weren't as wild and memorable as his later ones, and while they are of very good quality, these days they're being sold in Japan for the same price as a starter guitar. In fact, I would argue they are very interesting guitars. They have the form of a Stratocaster, the pickup arrangement of a Telecaster, and have active pickups. Something really hard to find on any other model. This is an incredibly unique combination. The same happens with some of Sugizo's old models. When brand new, they often went for more than 100,000 yen, but these days you can find them for way less. Why does that happen, you may ask? I'm not entirely sure, but I'll say it's probably due to the fact that fewer people are taking an interest in playing music these days. Also, they were fairly popular domestic models back in the day, so for many, they aren't special at all. The only cases where people treat them as special and pricey are limited and scarce editions. It's amusing to think that over the past years, things like old school CDs have been going up in price, while no one has noticed how old school guitar models are getting cheaper, don't you think? However, for us in the West, it's a very different story. The same guitars in many countries go for higher prices than when they were brand new. A guitar that may cost €150 in Japan can go for 800 or even 1,000 euros here. Those prices are often way higher than the actual cost of importing them, including shipping, taxes, and tariffs. Why? Because to us, they are exotic pieces of history, so many price them higher according to that. Even if you don't play guitar, bass, or any other instrument, you should go check Mercari and Rakuma to see how the used market prices the models of your Oshi. You may be surprised. because sometimes wild things can happen. Let me tell you the story of my wildest finding and the meaning of the word young. At times, Japanese listings can seem so weird to us, especially when they call something a junk item, because it may be something completely destroyed beyond salvation, just hoping to be buried in a respectful place, or something very different. Long ago, surfing some markets in the wee hours of the night, I found a listing that caught my eye. A signature guitar being sold as a junk item, an Edwards EKGA, the old accessible model of Deer & Gray's Kaoru, a model that was sold more than 20 years ago for 120,000 Japanese yen plus taxes. Adjusted for inflation into today's money, that's about 1,500 euros, a bit more than what a current Edwards signature model costs today. The listing was very weird. It was covered in dust, many metal parts were rusted. The seller claimed the guitar didn't produce any sound when plugged in, and the neck was a bit bowed down. And when I actually looked carefully at the pictures, I noticed the guitar didn't have a single scratch, and the frets look brand new despite being so old. A guitar that probably was never played, or just for a little while, and with those alleged problems, it had such a low price. Normally, I would stay away from something like that, but, and pardon my French, it just felt like a punch in the gut. At that point, I stopped playing guitar for 6 years, after more than a decade of playing, and seeing a guitar that was basically brand new, covered in dust and rust, made a part of me feel incredibly bad. If an electric guitar doesn't produce any sound, it's often a loose cable. If the neck is bowed down due to the passage of time, considering the fretboard looked new, maybe it was never adjusted and still had range. Rust can be cleaned, screws can be replaced. It could be fixed so easily, and yet it was treated like a nuisance that occupies space, as if it were garbage. That night, I did two things. I ordered it, went to my study, picked up my old guitar, and spent a few hours adjusting it. And since that day, I started playing again, like when I was a teenager. And here it is, the reason I'm still trying to reignite my creative spark and write music once again. I was completely right. One cable was loose, and that's why it didn't make any sound. The guitar still had plenty of adjustment range, and while I haven't done anything about the rust yet, it plays and sounds beautifully. In fact, I'm in love with this guitar. Not only is it incredibly comfortable to play, but it's also a precious piece of visual kei history. Since it's a Deer & Gray signature model, it would make sense if I plug it and played an iconic riff from the early days, right? And that's why I recorded a Madded Grail riff for you. You should never trust me, you know. That's dangerous. Anyway, let me hit play and show you how it sounds. Would you really say this sounds like junk? To me, it sounds fine. From time to time, you can see cases like this, and while not everything can be saved, sometimes I'd say it's worth trying. I feel silly thinking this guitar is the reason I got back into music and into retraining my creative muscle. Maybe it was the universe holding up a mirror to me for having stopped playing back then. Who knows? I don't know if I'll make a video about this guitar in the future. To be honest with you, it has many possibilities. From restoring it fully and feeding some decent electronics, to actually modding it and making something unique. But little by little, for now, I'm just using it as is to try writing a soundtrack for these nightly stories. It would be so much better to actually have music that matches my vibe before getting into something more serious musically speaking. That will take time, from composing again to actually learning how to properly mix and master a track so it sounds decent, and every instrument is in its place without sounding muddy. It's going to be a long journey, and I'm having so much fun learning every step. However, before we move on, I need to warn you. As I told you, junk items are something that can go both ways. Either the person selling it doesn't know what they are doing, or they actually have good knowledge and bought something while drunk. I recently found this, and while the situation and the price seem crazy to me, the seller is actually a very honest person. This is an early Sugiso model with aluminum foil glued on top. Maybe done as a clumsy attempt to try to make a mirror effect, maybe? While it could be safe, judging by its condition, it's a hardcore project. Many times it isn't worth it, as for a little more you can actually find something that requires way less work. With this one, you'll actually need to sand it down, paint it again, adjust it, and probably repair the electronics too. Be warned, for many of these junk items, you actually need to know how to repair them. And in many instances, they are beyond saving no matter the price. This is more common than you may think. If you go searching for the term junk item, you can actually see a whole museum of regret, drunkenness, and failed experiments. I won't spoil it for you, as you are in for a treat. Besides, you may find a treasure too. Honestly, if the seller of this guitar ends up slashing the price by at least 70%, I wouldn't mind grabbing it, making something cool out of it, documenting it, and guilt-tripping you by making a raffle for charity. I always wanted to do that. That would be a very VTuber thing to do, don't you think? You know, looking at these objects, I think there is something that visual kei bands have understood perfectly. Humans need beauty. Not to live per se, but to thrive, be creative, and be at peace. That's the reason we still go back to nature, even if we don't need to collect anything anymore. That's why we love visiting castles and cathedrals too. Seeing and being next to beautiful things feeds our souls. And nowadays, the general trend tends to be the opposite. We associate sober and minimalist designs with luxury, while colorful things tend to be classified as childish, tacky, and lower class. That's why many buildings now look like government offices, and these days things like phones and cars are often either black or white. There is little room for creativity and standing out, even though in the past it was the opposite, and what was opulent was often colorful, pretty, and shiny. Thankfully, visual kei bands have never given in to the modern standard. However, in their attempt to seek beauty, they have made many blunders along the way, things that made little sense or were completely out of place. This next year is where all the blunders and unexpected things live. Not all of them are inherently bad, but most of them are unexpected when compared to the bands they represent. Let's begin with the mundane objects, things that rather representing beauty, I'm not even sure what they represent. Starting with what we could call miscellaneous objects. Bands like Backtick, as I told you, have given masks as a gift to their fan club. Others like Moi de Moi have sold cleaning clothes. So you can be respectful toward them and wipe your screen before watching a live performance of the band. And for me, the prize goes to this electrical tape with X-Japan's logo. Electrical tape is something you use to temporarily fix something, and honestly, I love the idea, even if it doesn't make any sense for me. But at the same time, I can't stop thinking, why? Many bands have tried to reach too far from their own realm, and while musical instruments, apparel, and lifestyle items can make sense, I just don't think anyone would find a good use for it, not even to cover a rusty nail. Japan's food industry sometimes relies on celebrities advertising their brands, and while this is something common worldwide, they often go further and push more direct advertisements and collaborations. When it comes to Visual Kei, it has created many things beyond human comprehension. For instance, let's talk about energy drinks. To us in the West, they are often marketed as something that belongs in extreme sports, like motocross, flying in the air with cars, or any other kind of stunt. That's how Red Bull, Monster, Rockstar Energy and others have worked for the past decade. What if I told you Yoshiki partnered with a beverage company to release Real Gold, two versions of his very own energy drink? To be honest, associating an energy drink with being a rockstar isn't any weirder than extreme sports. Nonetheless, a very curious idea. Lark and Ciel took it a little further by making their own whiskey very recently. And during the golden era of Visual Kei, bands like Shasna were often featured on snacks and drinks. At the end of the day, the Japanese food industry has remained a staple for many idols. Other objects may be strange, but their nature doesn't need to be explained, as they are just toys and collectibles. In my humble opinion, many of these are the weirdest and coolest at the same time. Starting with figurines, many band members have been featured in a series of collectible miniatures. Some are small toys while others are more detailed and focused on being displayed, rather than just played with. And it's not only the bandmen themselves. Some went further and decided to showcase other parts of touring life, as bands like Glay and Backtick and others have released toy trucks, the kind that often serves as an advertisement for their tours while their instruments are transported inside to the next venue. And speaking of instruments, there is a whole world of miniature instruments. Many are official releases from bands like Hide's Mockingbird guitars, but many skilled craftspeople even make and sell their own miniature replicas of instruments from bands that don't engage in that practice. If you think about it, this may be the most absurd, so to speak. They are toys, but at the same time, they look incredible. You can place them on any shelf and stare at them for hours, just appreciating the sheer creativity of the people that made them. But not everything has a clear category, or if I were forced to make one, we could say there are many obscure objects, things that weren't supposed to be collected, small batches of memorabilia and promotional materials. Let's begin with the paper trail, the one thing you aren't supposed to collect. Before social media, many bands had a problem: how to get themselves known. Unless they were able to work with a label with enough resources, many could save up to release a demo or an album, but then what? They had to get out on the streets to get a chance to be discovered, and that often meant plastering flyers on walls before their concerts and giving out pamphlets after other bands had played. No one has escaped from this fate. It's even said Atsushi Sakurai had to walk the streets of Tokyo plastering flyer after flyer on the walls to promote the first concerts of Backtick. There is something really cool about this, you know? Paper and ink serve a temporary function. They are meant to be something transient, to let you know about a band before deteriorating so much they end up being thrown in a bin. Keeping them, even if you are not supposed to, is something precious. You are freezing in time something that's meant to be fleeting and disposable after serving its purpose. The other day, I had the chance to watch a full solar eclipse, and while I was looking at that incredible scenery, I couldn't stop thinking about that. Some things are meant to be let go. However, unlike the sun and the moon, you can actually keep them. In order to get themselves known, bands didn't rely only on flyers and pamphlets, but also on demo tapes, both for music and videos. This is something that may sound silly today, because now if you attend a concert or find a new band, you can hop over to YouTube and find their music and videos. But back in the day, even if you attended a small band's performance, saving their music was something more difficult, as many bands often started to perform even before they got the chance to record a proper album. So, what happened after the concert? Many sold or even gave away for free tapes containing their demos and even live performances in hopes of getting known. Before social media made things easy to share, many bands relied on word of mouth, letting others copy and hand out their demos for them. Even labels like Matina, run by Kisaki, went out their way to create as much material as they could, from VHS tapes with live performances and promotional music videos, to demos of up-and-coming bands. These days you can find them for sale. Some are treated as genuinely rare with high prices, while many tapes from unknown bands are sold by the weight. Nowadays, bands do something really similar on social media. They share their videos and demos for free in hopes of getting known, but this time with the ability of reaching across the whole world rather than just small venues. Have you ever wondered where bandmen get their costumes? What about having a replica of an outfit or your own design made too? This is probably the most obscure part of this iceberg, but from time to time, on a very rare occasion, you can see an auction of stage costumes from bands that never took off. But beyond that, there are many shops that are available to craft stage wardrobes for bandmen, cosplayers, or anyone who inquires, like coloring and romantic neurosis. And this also shows in the used marketplace, as you can find many cosplay clothing pieces to look like Hide and other musicians. This is probably the most fussy piece on this iceberg, as many of these pieces are DIY, and while some are for cosplaying as bandmen, others go further, designing their own pieces of fashion and then it just borders on gothic lolita, augie, and other forms of alternative fashion. The line between the wardrobe of a musician and alternative fashion is very thin. To be honest, I would say the only difference is if that piece is meant to be featured in something music related or not. That's it. This is something I'm still researching, but I wanted to give you a glimpse of it. Growing up, I always dreamed of getting myself an augie outfit, but I was never able to, and now that I have the time and resources to get into it, I've been doing my research and it's a surprisingly deep rabbit hole. It's filled with many bifurcations worth exploring. It's really cool. You can expect some stories about that from me in the future. This is the final entry, and rather than showing you anything else that's obscure, I just want to share with you a cool secret. I think it is, as I haven't seen many people talking about it. When it comes to visual kei merch, except for a few rare or special items, most things have remained affordable, right? Even today you can find CDs and merch for pretty much any band you like for a decent price. But what if I told you there is one kind of opportunity that most people tend to pass up? Because from time to time, someone will get rid of their collection. Maybe because they have run out of it, maybe to save space, or for any other reason. But what do? They sell it in bulk, as a lot. Rather than selling, for instance, individual CDs or tapes, they will sell lots of 30, 40 CDs for a really low price per unit. often less than 2 or 3 euros per CD. These things are often worth checking out, as they contain not only the music you actually would have bought individually, but also many hidden gems you didn't know about it. I'm talking about bands that you may not come across normally, acts that disbanded decades ago and social media's algorithms are not going to push them to you. In some sense, it's like gambling on a gacha game, with the difference that here you will score something you love in almost every package. And if you don't like some CDs or bands after listening to them, even better, you can exchange CDs with your friends. How good would that be, huh? What a wild ride, right? The fun thing about all of this is the fact that there is so much merchandise left to uncover. It's such a vast field that includes any object you could imagine. Whatever you may think is new, a band has probably done it already. And that's something incredibly precious because even if there are some blunders, the pursuit of beauty from these bands is something remarkable. You may find merch in every fandom, but when you get to compare them, it often feels dull. Take for instance Infamous Team, the guitar genius who has inspired many visual game musicians like Saki. His most prominent piece of merchandise is some white label gummies that have already become a meme in the music community. And while it's an extreme example, it often points out how for many, even merchandise is about being functional or just having a simple minimalist design, rather than being a part of the world building and something to let your imagination run wild. But that isn't the best part, to be honest with you. Not only are these pieces of merch interesting, but many also have significance and are alluring to the eye. They also haven't been contaminated like what has already happened in many hobbies. If you actually take a look at many other scenes, you can see how social media has created an awful trend of scalpers, cloud chasers, and gatekeeping. Scenes and hobbies like retro gaming and film photography have seen their prices skyrocket, as many more people have taken an interest in them, turning everything into a war of who has the rarest gear to show off and trying to resell it later for an even higher price. In a scene or hobby where things are small, while it's a nuisance, it may be manageable, but other scenes have become unattainable. For instance, many hobby project cars have multiplied in price over a few years, pricing out many enthusiasts along the way. Now they are pretty much treated as objects for displaying a status on social media, rather than just being fun projects to work on. However, none of this has happened within Visual Kei. Not only is all their stuff abundant and reasonably priced, but even the most expensive things are aspirational but still attainable. An item like the Edwards version of Isaki's guitar may be expensive, but it's reasonable to save up for it. It may happen sooner or later depending on your finances, but even if it's a long-term goal, it's something realistic. Of course, there are some items that are harder to come by, and some are prohibitive in price, especially in Western marketplaces. But considering how big the world of merch is, that's not a problem at all. And it probably won't be in the future, to be honest. Which is something that makes me incredibly happy. There is plenty of treasure for everyone and little digital ego, so things won't turn into an absurd world. That's amazing, don't you think? Beauty and elegance without all the ego. Anyway, I can only hope you enjoyed this video. This is the longest one I've made so far, and the most research intensive. I'm V, and I've been your host for the night. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Until we meet again.